The gaming industry is still digesting the insane major news that Microsoft is purchasing Activision Blizzard for a modest $70 billion. And there's a lot of talk about how much of the industry Microsoft is about to control, and if it's too much. People talking about them approaching monopoly status. Is Sony going to be able to even survive? Yeah, those Sony ponies, they've been in shambles all week, devastated at the potential of them losing access to Call of Duty loot boxes. I mean, imagine a world where you're not able to buy the same piece of shit Call of Duty game every year. But in seriousness, Sony's stock took a big hit when this announcement happened. It's very likely regulators are going to be looking at this acquisition. There is real concern here. And that's what I want to talk about today. Specifically, is Microsoft too powerful now? Do they have too much control and influence over this industry? In terms of straight competition, like Microsoft games versus Nintendo games versus Sony games, I've got to be honest, and this might be a bit controversial, on a straight games front, I'm not even worried for Sony and Nintendo at all. Like, Microsoft, in my opinion, hasn't really proved super capable when it comes to making great games lately, despite all these big studio pickups. I've said forever, when Microsoft bought Rare, everyone was freaking out about all the great Banjo-Kazooie, Conker, Battletoads, Perfect Dark, etc. type games we'd be getting. And how'd that work out? The more recent acquisitions like Obsidian and Ninja Theory. I mean, what did you get out of that? That Grounded game that's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? Like out in the backyard fighting bugs. I've heard people say they like it. I don't want to hate on it too much because I haven't really played it, but it's certainly not something that lit the industry on fire. What was the Ninja Theory, like Overwatch Melee game? Bleeding Edge, I think it's called. It was basically, an online hero arena type game, very Overwatch-ish, but the focus was on melee combat, and that had to shut down like a year after going live. I mean, you want to talk about embarrassing. Now, there is more promising stuff in the pipe from those studios. I'm not trying to hate. Bethesda, I have confidence that they'll continue making good stuff. The Doom series is one of my favorite things going right now. That Starfield game sounds right up my alley. But as of this acquisition, Activision Blizzard is a total shit show. Like, they're buying a $70 billion dumpster fire. They've got to take out all the trash and practically rebuild this massive company and their reputation from the ground up. It's not going to be a small feat by any means. It's going to require a lot of time and effort. Like I said in my video when the acquisition happened, even from a pure games perspective, take out all this, sexual harassment drama and controversy surrounding the company. Just looking at the games, the ones that are coming out lately, they're not that great. Call of Duty is a Pokemon type name. It's always going to sell well, but you're going to need a lot more than Call of Duty to recoup that $70 billion. The Blizzard side of things, my God, it's honestly hard for me to even talk about modern Blizzard. It hurts. I grew up a total fanboy of this company. Diablo 2 and Warcraft 3 are two of the games I've spent more time in than any other, and they've fallen so hard. I'd love to be a fanboy of this company again, but it's going to take a lot. And I do want to say I'm rooting for a big turnaround here. I'm rooting for Microsoft to reap the benefits, have this be a worthy investment, because what that's going to mean is more great games for us, the players. And at the end of the day, that's always the side I'm on. But I feel like a lot of people are looking at this and feeling like as soon as they sign that dotted line, overnight, boom, things are going to be totally different. It's not. It's going to take a long, especially like that reputation. Do not discount that, both with the harassment thing and the games front. You're going to have to do a lot of great things just to get people to start trusting you again after what a shit show things have been. So yeah, the point I'm trying to make is nothing is guaranteed when these acquisitions happen. You could have a great studio all of a sudden be mismanaged into being a lackluster studio, and the ones you've picked up are far from their peak. Activision Blizzard is in a real you fell off plus ratio kind of situation. And let's be clear, if we're talking about the level of competition, you look over at Sony, the main competitor, it's like they're pumping out Spider-Man, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Ghost of Tsushima, just banger after banger after banger. Each game, millions upon millions of copies sold. No matter what happens, people are going to want to continue playing those games. Microsoft could buy 5, 10 more studios between now and when the Spider-Man 2 game releases. Regardless, millions of people are still going to play that Spider-Man 2 game, I promise you. So yeah, I know Sony Bros, you've been the subject of many memes over this past week, but I think we're far from the point where we need to throw our PS5s in the garbage. Nintendo's a weird one, of course, because they're doing their own thing pretty much with the Switch. Many of these games, even if Microsoft makes them exclusive, Nintendo wasn't going to get anyway. I mean, Call of Duty is the biggest franchise we're talking about, and when's the last time a Call of Duty game was even on a Nintendo system? What was that, like Ghosts, I think? It was one of the it was on Wii U, and they seem to be doing okay without them. And on top of that, there's still plenty of things these two can do in reaction to this purchase. Obviously, people are speculating what the next big acquisition will be and who it will be by. Like Sony fairly recently locked up Insomniac, and what they pay for them, like $220 million, a fraction of what we're talking about with Microsoft. And think about the returns. I mean, this studio that you paid a relatively much smaller amount for already gave you two big games for the launch of the PS5, Miles Morales and Ratchet & Clank: A Rift Apart. And they currently have, I would say, two of the most anticipated upcoming games, and that's Spider-Man 2, which I already talked about, and Wolverine. So yeah, it's a good example that it's not just about how much money you're throwing around, but what you're spending that money on and making sure you're getting good returns for it. Like I said, you want to put up Spider-Man against anything from Microsoft's acquired studios? Microsoft has spent like $100 billion now on these acquisitions. Name one game these studios have put out that's better than Spider-Man. But yeah, in terms of other acquisitions, I've seen a lot of talk in the last few days about the evaluations of the remaining big development houses. Obviously, in a perfect world, no game would be exclusive and you could play everything on every platform. But since we live in reality, I at least prefer single exclusives like Street Fighter on PS5, doing stuff like that instead of buying out the entire studio. But it's looking more and more like we're moving away from that, which is also a big fear I have in terms of I could see a mass scrambling with everyone trying to buy up studios before someone else buys them. But when you look at these evaluations, some of these companies, especially like Square Enix and Capcom, seem really cheap to me, certainly compared to the $70 billion Microsoft just paid for Activision Blizzard. I mean, the fact that those two are less than Konami, Sega too, while I understand why it's cheap, I think that'd be a good value. Again, a ton of money, but if I was running these companies with all this billions of cash on hand, and again, I had to be looking at what studios I could buy, I'd definitely be more focused on those cheaper ones at the bottom. I feel like just the IPs alone would make them worth it. They're time-tested. These are games that have been around forever. In comparison, I look at something like Take-Two. I'm sure they're worth that evaluation, but like, what if the fabled GTA 6 comes out and it's not as successful with the microtransactions in that, like 5? Where's Take-Two at then? That's why for the price, I'd feel better about some of those cheaper ones. But the point is, there's still plenty going on outside of Microsoft and plenty of ways for others to compete and strengthen their position. Which kind of leads me into my actual main concern with Microsoft getting so much control over the industry, and that's more so how they may use that to their advantage to perhaps hinder progress for their competitors. Like, let's take this whole Call of Duty situation that's been on everyone's minds. Phil Spencer came out and made some pretty vague tweets about, of course, honoring previous contracts and saying he's intent on keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation, which in terms of the previous contracts, games that are already in development for PlayStation, I think that people expected them to stay the course with that stuff. They weren't going to pull existing games from PlayStation consoles or anything like that. The real question, though, is games beyond that, say 2 to 3 years from now. What is the PlayStation going to be getting? Because from what we've seen with the Bethesda deal, it looks like probably not much. But again, for this concern of mine, let's move past that. Let's pretend they said clearly, yes, the plan is to keep Call of Duty a multi-platform franchise with future Call of Duty games all coming to PlayStation consoles. That'd be a good thing for the PlayStation players. I'm sure many would be excited about that. But that's also going to be a big power play on Microsoft's end. Like, you think they're just going to keep them on there no matter what? If they do keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, but then Sony tries to do something, that hurts them, maybe get some exclusives or something that Microsoft is eyeing, you think they wouldn't have to consider the consequences? I mean, no matter what, Microsoft controlling these IPs is going to have an effect on how everyone else does business. The PC platforms, your Steam, Epic Game Store. Do you want to be able to sell Call of Duty on your platform? Well, you better play ball with us. It's kind of the opposite of something like Amazon, right? If you're selling products, you probably wouldn't ever want to piss off a company like Amazon and not be able to sell there. This would be that in reverse, as Microsoft has all the products, and they could just as easily make them exclusive to their own store. I mean, do you really think people would stop playing Call of Duty games, not play the next Elder Scrolls if they were exclusive to the Microsoft store, if they couldn't get them on Steam? Yeah, they'd probably piss and moan about it for a little bit, but at the end of the day, they're still going to play them. And that goes to third parties as well. Like, are you sure you want to do that exclusive DLC with PlayStation and not Microsoft, who owns like half the industry? What if you're looking to sell your company one day? Aren't you going to want to be in the good graces of Microsoft? And that's the kind of stuff I get more scared of, especially as time goes on, because so far, Microsoft has been fairly cool with how they deal with everyone else. Phil Spencer always seems very kumbaya about everything, but that could change. I mean, long term, the actual people in charge likely will change. And also, when you think long term, we thought the Bethesda deal was insane. And this is seriously like 10 times bigger. And if one thing is for sure, there will be more. Maybe not super soon with how big of a purchase Activision Blizzard was, but there will be more acquisitions from Microsoft. And as those happen, the argument of them becoming a monopoly, becoming too powerful, will certainly be stronger. But for right now, even though I don't like what I'm seeing in terms of these acquisitions, I think there's still plenty of room, plenty of options for others to succeed and for others to continue competing with Microsoft. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Microsoft's growing power level in the comments. Do you think they're getting too strong? Do you think the competition is still strong enough to counterbalance them? And are you worried about the possibility of many more acquisitions happening, not just by Microsoft, but others in the near future? As always, I'm the Shy Guy, Johnny Zakari, and thanks for watching.